Hello, everyone. This is the 7th episode of the Reading Buddy Book Club where we are reading Upside Down Magic. My name is Emily, and I am an assistant youth and teen librarian here at Fayetteville Public Library. The last place that we left off with Nori was that she was training with Elliot to try and transfer out of Upside Down Magic class into the normal classes. She got a little bit of help from Pepper, and Nori is starting to kind of figure out how to harness her magic. So before we jump in, let's grab our reading buddy, and if you want to, you can get a snack, get a drink, settle in, and let's start reading. Chapter 15. The box of normal worked for Elliot too. He tried it that afternoon at his house, with Nori looking on. He lit a candle. He lit 2 candles. He lit 3. "Elliot," Nori said, 3 candles and no freezing. That was awesome." Elliot was clearly pleased. He blew the candles out with a poof of air. He roasted a marshmallow perfectly, too. Nori said, taking a bite. "Delicious. Do you want some?" He shook his head. "I don't like marshmallows." "Really? What's not to love?" Nori popped the rest of it into her mouth. Elliot shrugged. "I'm more into ice cream. Go ahead and laugh. A freezer who likes ice cream. Ha. I've heard it before." I wasn't going to laugh. Lacey thinks it's hilarious. "Oh, come on. Everybody likes ice cream. That's why it's great to be a freezer. Maybe one day you'll be able to make it with your own hands." Elliot shook his head. "No, I won't, remember? If the box of normal keeps working, I won't freeze anything ever again." Nori was silent for a minute. What Elliot had just said seemed kind of sad. But then again, he didn't want to be a freezer. He wanted to be a flare. "No problem," she told him brightly. "Who needs to make ice cream? You can always buy it from the store." The next week, they practiced every chance they got, day after day. Nori became a puppy. The puppy did not sprout squid legs. Nori became a skunk. The skunk did not grow an elephant trunk. Elliot cooked eggs and marshmallows. Sometimes they were burnt or undercooked, but never, ever did they freeze. Andre was the second person to notice something was up, or at least the second person to say something out loud about it. It happened Wednesday morning. They were doing a trust activity. First, everyone had to choose a partner. Nori chose Elliot. Then Miss Starr gave each pair of students a large mixing bowl full of whipped cream. Hidden within the cream, she explained, were cherries. The same number in each bowl, more than 5, fewer than 25. "The team who finds the most cherries wins," Miss Starr said. Her eyes danced. "But there's a catch." "Of course there is," Bax grumbled. He'd been paired with Andre for a partner, which required him to grab Andre's leash, haul him down from the ceiling, hand over hand. Then he handed Andre the bag of bricks. Even so, Andre still floated a foot off the floor, like a boy-shaped balloon. "What's the catch?" Willa asked. Her partner was Pepper, and Nori noticed that they were wearing striped shirts. These days, they often coordinated clothes. "The catch is that you have to find the cherries using only your mouths." Miss Starr bounced on her toes. "Just your mouths, not your hands." Everyone looked at her. What about germs?" Marigold said. "No one's sick, are they?" Miss Starr asked. She barreled on. "Great then." "I'm going to have problems with this," Sebastian said. "The sound waves of slurping are absurdly bright. I will need sunglasses." "You can close your eyes," said Miss Starr. "How does this exercise build trust?" Elliot asked. "You get whipped cream all over your faces," the teacher answered. "It's going to be hilarious. You'll laugh with each other, not at each other, which builds community. But it's also an exercise meant to stretch your brains. This is not the typical way to find cherries. It'll develop your natural instincts." "Is there a typical way to find cherries?" Elliot asked. "Yeah, it's called the grocery store," Willa said. "My natural instinct is to not stick my face into a bowl of whipped cream," Bax said. Miss Starr ignored them. She raised her chin and said, "Ready, set, go." Sebastian dove into the whipped cream. He emerged with the fluffy white beard, thick white eyebrows, and closed eyes. He licked the whipped cream off his mouth. "Yummy. Have I got any on my face?" Marigold had put her face into the bowl too. "I did it," she cried. She had wide, round eyes within peaks of white. She moved her mouth around and spit the red cherries into her hand. "Yay me!" It was fun. Everyone began bobbing in and out of the bowls. Willie used the whipped cream to spike up her bangs. Pepper dipped only her nose into the whipped cream. Then she lifted her head to see what looked like a glob of white snot. Kleenex, she deadpanned. Andre choked on the cherry, and Bax hit him on the back, causing a blob of cream to splatter all over Bax's shirt. Everyone laughed, even Bax. Nori sat back. She soaked in the chaos and grinned. It was undeniably fun. Then she remembered. Fun wouldn't get her and Elliot out of the UDM class and into regular classes. They needed to use this time to focus on the box of normal. Nori fished around in the bowl of cream with her hands and pulled out a cherry, which she cleaned off with her shirt. She held the cherry out to Elliot. Light the stem on fire. Elliot lifted his eyebrows. I can try, I guess. He glanced around, but there's a lot going on. That's the point, Nori said. You know, in the book, you have to be able to ignore distraction. Elliot concentrated. Poof. The cherry stem burst into flame. Nice, Nori said, quickly dropping the cherry back into the wet bowl of cream. She pulled out a new cherry with her hand. This time, just like the tip, like a candle. Elliot squinted, and a tiny flame flared on the tippity tip of the stem. Elliot, yes, Nori cried. Hey, Andre accused. No fair. He sat down his bag of bricks and drifted up to the ceiling, and his voice boomed louder. Nori's using her hands to get the cherries out, and Elliot's lighting them on fire. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Their whipped cream-covered faces swiveled in Elliot's direction. You're doing your magic the right way, Willis said in a funny voice. How'd you learn to light things on fire instead of freezing them? Nori gulped. She sensed Elliot stiffening behind her. Nori and Elliot, Miss Starr said quietly, I would appreciate if you could focus on my exercise while you're in my classroom. What does she mean? Willis said. What other classroom would you be in? Nori couldn't tell everyone what she and Elliot were doing. She couldn't say to their faces that she wanted out of their class. It was the germs, she exclaimed, like Marigold said earlier. Marigold looked confused. I got grossed out, Nori insisted. That's why Elliot lit the cherry on fire, because I'm afraid of germs. She wasn't a fan of germs, but after growing up in a house with 12 rabbits and a toucan, she wasn't exactly afraid of them. Not as afraid as she was about staying here, in the upside-down magic class. Pepper cleared her throat. People have trouble following rules when they get scared. I'm afraid of snakes, she offered. Nori shot her a grateful look. I'm afraid of worms, Willis said, and they come out when it rains. Ah, so this is turning out to be a trust exercise of a different kind, Miss Starr said. She clasped her hands. In fact, this is a teachable moment. Everyone groaned. Let's each share something we're scared of, Miss Starr said, passing out individually wrapped wipes. Nori is scared of germs. Pepper is scared of worms. Snakes, Pepper corrected. I'm worms, Willis said. And I'm scared of heights, Miss Starr finished. It's silly, I know, but there it is. Andre, what are you scared of? Wide open spaces, he said. Everyone nodded, and just like that, the others jumped in. Elliot was scared of clowns. Sebastian was afraid of thunderstorms and rock concerts. Marigold was scared of having foods touch each other on her plate. I absolutely detest gravy, she said with a shiver. Gravy creeps me out because it mushes everything together. Yes, I suppose it does, Miss Starr said. She turned to Bax, the only student who hadn't gone. Bax, would you like to share? No thanks, Bax said. Would you share anyway, please? Bax glowered at Nori as if this new trust exercise was all her fault. No one spoke. The silence grew uncomfortable. Finally, Bax mumbled something that Nori couldn't make out. I'm sorry, what? Miss Starr said. Sledgehammers, Bax said, staring at the carpet. One more time? Bax exhaled. Sledgehammers, all right? Sledgehammers, Willis said. Why? I get it, Elliot said. Because of the rock thing. Oh, the other said. It's a stupid thing to be afraid of, Bax muttered. No, it's not, Elliot said. I wouldn't want a sledgehammer hitting me. I wouldn't even want a very small hammer hitting me. He said it so earnestly that everyone laughed. I'm not kidding, he insisted. Hammers of all kinds are serious. Bax didn't smile at Elliot, but he didn't scowl either. Nori felt a rush of affection for Elliot, who was kind to people on purpose. She felt a rush of affection for Bax, too. It surprised her. But I still want out, she told herself. Anyway, being moved to a regular class doesn't mean I can't be friends with the UDM kids. Bax gave Elliot an awkward fist bump. Nori looked away. When everyone went around sharing their fears, she was the only one who hadn't told the truth. Finally, it was Friday, the day of the test. Nori and Elliot arrived early to school. A woman wearing a narrow skirt and holding a clipboard waited for them outside the gymnasium. Elliot Cohen, she said. Yes. Go on, then, the woman said, pushing open the door to the gym. Good luck, you'll be great. Toast it to perfection, Nori called. Elliot looked back at Nori. His eyes were wide. The woman with the clipboard followed behind, and the door swung shut. Nori paced. She tried to crack her knuckles. She did jumping jacks to help get her anxiety out. It felt like forever. Finally, Elliot burst through the gymnasium doors, beaming from ear to ear. Perfect marshmallow, he shouted. Principal Gonzalez even ate it. He popped it right into his mouth and said it was the best marshmallow he'd had all day. I mean, I know it was the only marshmallow he'd had all day, but who cares? Nori jumped up and down. I'm so proud of you. The woman with the clipboard cleared her throat. Elinor Horace? She let Nori into the gym. You're going to ace it, Elliot called after her. Box of normal for the win. The door shut solidly behind her. She flinched. The gym didn't have as much of an echo when she came in with the rest of her class. It was the same room with the scarred wooden floor she'd been in many times before, but it felt different now. Bigger, scarier. Principal Gonzalez was nowhere in sight, but Nori wasn't surprised. Elliot had told her on the first day that the principal was invisible. Come in, a voice boomed. Nori turned toward the sound. Now there was a man sitting on the middle row of the rickety gym bleachers. A tall man with a big silly mustache, tan skin, no hair, and a three-piece velvet suit. Then he was gone. Then he was there. Then he settled into being halfway visible in a pale shade of blue, which Nori knew was quite a difficult flicker trick. So you're Stone Horace's daughter, the man said. We went to Sage Academy together. Did you know that? Went through all our flicker studies side by side. You're friends with Father? No, he said with a sigh. Not friends. Competitors, you might say. And we have very different educational ideas. But he's a smart man. For a second, the principal seemed lost in thought. Then he pulled himself back. You go by Nori? Nori nodded. He turned and extended his hand. Principal Gonzalez, very pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you too, Nori said, shaking his hand. It was solid, even though he looked only partly there. I'm quite excited about this year's upside-down magic class, the principal continued. I'm sorry to hear you want to leave. I don't know for sure that that's the best way to teach students with different magics, but I sure hope this will be a good solution. You know, teachers have been arguing about upside-down magic education for a long time. There are many different theories. Now, many UDM classes are starting up around the country. I have high hopes they'll make a positive change. Miss Starr is a really good teacher, Nori said. It was true. Saying it made Nori realize it for sure. But you still want to leave? Nori nodded. It's a pity, he said. But if it really matters to you, we'll give you a chance. The principal sat back down on the bleachers and slapped his hand on his thighs. Let's see your kitten, shall we? All black, if you please. Nori concentrated on her box of normal. She stayed within its safe walls and did her kitten. She did it perfectly. She held still as Principal Gonzalez inspected her whiskers, teeth, tail, and ear fluff. She meowed and followed instructions to jump up on a chair and roll over. The woman in the narrow skirt opened a can of tuna fish and set it on the ground. Nori didn't eat it. Then the woman changed into a mouse and ran in front of Nori. Nori's human mind stayed in control. She didn't chase the mouse. Then the woman changed into a butterfly and flew around her head. Nori didn't chase that either. Fine work indeed, Principal Gonzalez said. You may return to human form now, please. Nori popped from cat to girl. All right then, Principal Gonzalez said. You've done very well. You and Elliot both. Can we switch to the normal magic classes then? Nori asked. There are other factors to think about, the principal said, but you should be very proud of yourselves. He studied her, stroking his chin. I'll have an answer for you by the end of the day. Elliot waited outside of the gym for Nori. The bell rang to start the day, and they ran all the way to class. Never, never again, Elliot practically sang. Never again will I freeze a flower or turn a pizza into a disk of ice. My freezing days are over. And no more skunkifants for me, Nori said. To her surprise, she felt a pang of loss. She pushed it away. Elliot stopped running. His cheeks were rosy. Nori, we're normal. Nori nodded. As long as we stay in our boxes. All right, that is where we're stopping for today. This was the 7th episode of the Reading Buddy Book Club, which means we have just one more episode left, and it will be airing this coming Wednesday. All of these episodes will be up on YouTube indefinitely, so if you want to go back and re-listen, or if you don't have time to watch the last one, etc., you can access them at any time. I'm so happy that you guys have gotten to read Upside Down Magic with me. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!